1, 2, I think that mic's working. So let's start today. Welcome everybody. Today we're trying to do another We Need to Talk, this time about appropriation, episode 31 of RMIT's School of Design's Communication Design series of talks. They're connected to the studio practice or the studios in this program, but of course everybody's welcome to listen in, which is why we're putting it out on the YouTubes. So my name is Andy Simionato. I just realized I'm not even appearing on the screen. Let me fix that. And I'm here today with Karen and Donnachie. So welcome, Karen. Thanks again for joining me today. I know that you're volunteering to do this just because you happen to be about when I need to get one of these out. I really appreciate it, Karen. And we'll be talking a little bit about some of our works that use appropriation. And I think it's particularly relevant these days because there is this kind of zeitgeist, right, around especially generative AI and claims of it misappropriating the work of humans in order to, I guess, provide a service of generative AI, ChatGPT, etc., etc. Have you heard of this generative AI?
No, but I do believe it's going to be a big thing.
It's a zeitgeist.
Yes.
But, you know, I think there's a cream to fix that. We'll make that zeitgeist just clear up right away.
Yeah.
So we're looking at some material that you've made, right, for the Les Festival of Contemporary Collage.
Yes.
But before we do, I just wanted to really kind of describe what we mean when we talk about appropriation and especially methods like collage. I'm going to jump straight ahead to the Stellark scan. You made with Stellark a while ago, but it's you only showed it just recently, right?
Yeah, so it was featured in Miami Art Fair in Lonely Rocks was the name of the exhibition. Yeah.
It's so basically this is a scan, a 3D scan of your head, a high res scan, and we've skinned it with covers of magazines, and in fact magazines are a common source of collage, primary material, I guess. But when we talk about collage, I mean, I guess we're thinking about the traditional notion of collage as you can imagine, which began in I guess from the moment there was the invention of photography. I'm sure somebody decided to pick up some photos and cut them up and start putting them together, like Moholy-Nagy and the Bauhaus. You have the Dadaists, the Surrealists, I guess, like Dali's Lobster Telephone here. From 1936 onward, you know, I think Dali also made a cookbook. You get the idea. Okay, I don't want this to be a kind of a lecture in a lot of historical examples, but
I think that the one thing that I want to say about collage is that it seems to me very politically potent. Like the appropriation itself, the art of taking something that has already risen because it's in a magazine or a book. It's something that's already been elevated to rhetoric or to message. And I think taking all of those and juxtaposing them can provide some opportunities for some great comment. Right. On society. So perhaps, you know, if we are talking about how collage works today with AI that sort of elides all of the appropriation, collage can make us remember where things come from.
This is some work that we did. I can't remember the magazine. Could be maybe Quest magazine coming out of Berlin in the 2000s, early 2000s. And you can see the use of found imagery. The fashion photography is, of course, yours, Karen, but at the same time, you're cutting things up, sticking them over the top in a very analog way, and then I'm sort of scratching. At the time, I used to scratch into the photographs themselves, and you can see those drawings of stars and whatever. Another one, I think I've actually got the physical one of the. We could look at this later, but you know, you can see that at times, you know, we're sort of interrupting or disrupting the flow of images with something that's been cut up and just sort of placed in juxtaposition, right?
Yeah, I think the idea was that we could slice and dice, or at least draw that focus away from slice and dice the images.
Cooking show.
Yeah, no, exactly.
This is that other piece that we saw here. You can maybe see a better example of the way we are using this. And it doesn't all fit in there, but you get an idea. Okay. Do you think that's too glaring? Oh no, it works. That's good enough. So there are some color fields in the background you may not see because of the light. So it's more or less crudely cut out, and it creates, I don't know, some pretty dreamy sort of examples that are part of what we did many years ago, of course. I'll stop there because I wanted to talk about somebody who influenced us a lot and with whom we've worked for many years. I don't know how many years.
20 years?
So Sergei Zviachenko is perhaps one of the most celebrated contemporary collage artists, Ukrainian-born artist based in Denmark. And here's a book edited by Rick Poyneur. I think that is quite recent. And you can see in it a lot of these works by Sergei are really indicative of a sort of almost a philosophy, I think, that is emerging from his work, which he calls less, L-E-S-S, and which led on to a whole, kind of the school of less and a contemporary collage festival, triennial, that we're associated with, which happens in Denmark, and you even did a studio last year, right, Karen?
Yes.
So during lockdown, you had students working with Sergei over video conferencing and vice versa, right? You were working with students there in Denmark, producing a whole bunch of really beautiful outcomes. So
I think, also in the studio that we did, which was Less and More, the idea was that collage isn't limited to two-dimensional print. It isn't limited to sort of collage cutting up of existing images, but it could work over fashion, music, film, 3D virtual environments, and so on. And I think what was really nice is that every student had incredible range of outcomes that were across all genres.
Yeah, it was really exciting. It's not the only studio that's treated collage. I think Ariel Aguilera did one last semester as well, which I thought was super exciting and had a great exhibition at the end of it. Look, there would be a lot here. Here's an image of Sergei here, but and there is a lot of interest in collage. I guess this is a book by Verlag Gestalten on calling it Our Age, the Age of Collage, which is well worth looking at. And I think Sergei's in here. I'm sure he's in here, and a bunch of other things. You can tell from the number of post-it notes that we refer back to this often. But look, I said at the beginning that we're thinking about this as something that could be useful for studio practice. And I think it's useful because we have a kind of we're in a moment in which we're being offered many tools that allow us to easily generate imagery. And I think last time we did one of these, I talked about generative AI as a form of digital collage.
Yeah.
Now, I was completely wrong. We discussed it afterwards, and I was uneasy when I said it. I tend to blurt things out. And when I reflected on the words, I thought, well, actually, it's kind of the opposite of digital collage. And I want to talk a little bit about that now. I want to show you some of the work that we've done with algorithmic or computational collage. Okay, so this is a project, we'll start from here, Karen.
Okay, sure.
This is a project we called Regions of Interest. And what can you tell us about the process? It looks a lot like collage, right? I mean, we called it collage, découpage. What can you tell us about it, Karen?
So this is algorithmically derived. So I have trained code on through computer vision and through ideas of finding regions of interest. So the computer vision, which is through a camera, manages to isolate items. It can identify things like features and changes of contrast and fields of color, and it determines these to be regions of interest. And because I'm using sort of a data set that we've edited ourselves, so it's sort of contemporary images, our own photography, images from the Dutch masters and so on, we end up with these kind of collage techniques that we find to be these sort of uncanny landscapes.
And how are these different to, I mean, we made these, a couple of years ago? We were making these.
Started in 2020.
Yeah.
So we've been doing them for a couple of years. The difference between these and generative AI is that generative AI, if you think about it, I always think about it as kind of like a fire hose of pixels that will distribute pixels across the whole image. And generally there's another algorithm that will look at those images and say, well, you were going to go for a dog, did you nail it or not? And there's an algorithm that determines whether that's doggish enough to be an image of a dog, and that's what generative AI does. Whereas these these sculptural works, I like to call them, they're sort of a digital sculpture, is made through the idea of still using the appropriation of the original images with the ideas of actual collage techniques, so human collage techniques, which would be cutting or grafting or stenciling or pasting over the top. These are all the elements that we've.
It's just our cat. It's all right.
we have the script. We have the code that is able to cut and stencil and remember gestures. I think that's what we were talking about.
We were talking about this being exactly. We observed by working with artists, great artists like Sergei Sviatchenko, who I showed you just a minute ago. Observing the way that Sergei uses scissors, the way that he even goes and his methods of finding the primary material, looking through old bookstores, and he says he has a pusher of old books, of vintage books, and the respect and love that Sergei brings to the primary material, to the book itself. When we've worked together, I really took note of how carefully he handles the books, that he then proceeds to rip and cut to pieces, but it's something, it's really an act of love, like I said. Anyway, we observed Sergei for many years. We've worked together, and when we sat down to think about, what kind of algorithm can we write that maybe creates a version of that replicates some of those methods, we ended up with these results.
But what's really
but we were really astonished by generative AI's approach. And at first we thought, oh well, okay, like usual, like we invent something that was just around the corner, but actually it's very different. And I think the phenomenology is very different. I think that the conceptual framework is very different. What we're talking about with generative AI is, as you said, it's a fire hose spraying pixels. And but above all, because these pixels have been sprayed in a kind of stochastic or statistically probable way across a canvas, you lose where the original image has come from. You lose the source, and you begin, in a way, to forget the history of that image. You forget that every image comes from other images. You lose those connections, whereas I think traditional collage techniques, it has that recognition or that acknowledgement embedded within it. In its very process, you almost reveal your own methodologies, your own techniques, because it's not trying to hide anything. And what I noticed, one thing that is very clear about generative AI software is that it's very black boxed. It's very protective. The software companies providing these services are very protective of their data sets. We don't get to see them. No. We don't get to see how they're used. We only get to use this really fun tool, And
Well,
even better
actually-
if you pay $20
Yeah,
a month.
well, actually, there's
Whereas you
there's,
could do it with scissors. You could do it with scissors and old magazines
Can I
and
say
some
that
love.
there's actually a list server that I follow which is called Awful AI, and on this list server they gave the award in 2022 for the worst use of AI to Runway, DALL-E, and Midjourney and the other image generators because of the way that they have literally sort of vacuumed up thousands and thousands and millions of images and are reusing them in some sense as the as sources without attributing, like without even saying, you know, thanks to all the artists who have donated or given or let their images be used.
Yeah. So I guess we've always done this. So I think our publications have always borrowed. I'm using borrowed here in quotes. You know, sometimes borrowed without asking material from the internet. The internet was a kind of huge collage machine when I'm talking about Web 1, right? So from the I guess the early mid 90s with Alta Vista and all that moment, all the way after Google essentially transformed the internet into a kind of collage machine if you were an artist that were interested in finding images. And a lot of our books, in fact, had a lot of appropriated imagery in them. And this is work by the artist collective Jody, with whom we worked to create this chapter. Obviously, they're using Google Maps. Okay, so all sorts of things are available to us. Here's more work by Sergey.
But for us, the
Sorry,
idea of collage permeates through all of these books because I think the principal underlying factor is that you have unexpected juxtapositions. And I think that that's what we're always trying to sort of look for, because it's in those moments, it's almost like in a slippage or a fail or a collision of two ideas or two images that maybe shouldn't ever be together or wouldn't have naturally ended up being together.
Right.
And it's that will give us maybe a key or a boost or something to think about things slightly differently.
I consider it a way out. I consider it an escape hatch for me. When I feel that I'm being overwhelmed with the number of images, the amount of text that is kind of being thrown at me through socials, through my various travels through life, the making collage is an escape hatch, because instead of adding to this mountain of imagery and words and text, I can take from it a little bit and build something else. I can make it useful for my own life and for building meaning. So I just want to. I guess we should finish.
I think it's like a kind of an upcycling.
It's an upcycling. I like upcycling. The Les Festival of Contemporary Collage. This sounds like an ad, but if I can draw your attention to that now, because Sergey, Karen Ann, myself, and the museum. Help me out, I've forgotten the name of the museum. Skolberg. Anyway, all the information is up on the website, which I can give you.
But this is the old version.
This is the old version, yeah. I'll move along. But what I wanted to talk about was basically the way that collage is, I find, a very contemporary form of creative production. Yeah. Here you see a procedurally generated VR environment that Karen and I designed for the outcomes, to exhibit the outcomes from the workshops that we talked about. And here is Sergey with
and because
trying
it's
it out.
Again, because it's generated in real time, so every time you visit, it populates that space in a different way. Those juxtapositions come to the surface again, because you might find that panels are intersecting in a way that makes further collage.
Exactly. So here you have, as I said, Sergey trying out the website or the VR environment. His students showing their work.
And so they collaged images that Andy and I had made in Melbourne and Sergey had taken in Denmark. And actually the Viborg and Melbourne are both UNESCO cities of culture. And the whole project is sponsored with the patronage of the UNESCO as well. I
don't know, it really helped. I found that it helped me through a large part of the lockdown. It kept us connected, and it does help me, at least personally, deal with the mountains of crap that this avalanche of imagery that, well, social media is unbearable now, because if you turn to social media for inspiration, I think it's over. I think you're done for. Find old books, find old magazines that maybe have lived their lives, and you can use them in collage, give them new life. Here you have, after we made that virtual environment, or rather in parallel to the virtual environment, you can see that an actual, I guess, what can we call it? An
collage
in real
garden.
life collage garden followed. And here you can see that these panels were made, exactly the same artworks that you saw previously. You can see that one in the middle by students, and by Sergei Karen's students here in the studio that you ran, being exhibited in Viborg, Denmark. And we were lucky enough that it also snowed, which creates a kind of a particularly, I think, a snowy field is its own kind of virtual environment, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I kind of feel like that could be it, but what else could we add? Here are some more images.
Well, we have this other project, I guess, Andy, which is called Things Have Forgotten What the Shape.
So this is the last slide of this one. I'm trying to find a way into this new project. So algorithmic collage. So the laser cut stuff.
Exactly. So we're looking at the same idea of finding these regions of interest, and rather than doing it merely on the screen or in pixels, so we decided to use the laser to cut away the parts of the book, and it really does make these unexpected juxtapositions, which is what we're always hoping for. We couldn't imagine, like Andy and I weren't able to imagine, like a 60-page book, what cutting something at the beginning could possibly look like by the time you cut all the way through to the last page. So having the algorithm sort of scan the whole book first, or look through the whole book first, and then decide what to cut through, was super exciting. So we have different experiments here. Sometimes it was cutting away way too much and the page was falling apart. And other times you could really see that it makes these kind of wormholes through the book, which is really exciting.
We may have glossed over. So the difference between, let's say, this technique, apart from the use of the technology, the difference is that the pages remain inside the book. So this is, I guess, a little bit closer to the tradition of artist books book art, and appropriating existing books, cutting into them. There are various artists who do this technique, decoupage technique on books. This one is done through computer vision and leveraging a kind of artificial intelligence. Now, I want to show this. So here you go. This is the actual laser. Now, the first books we used were children's books. They were handy to find, and for some reason,
Hey Google, stop.
Here you see, well, that's telling us we should finish. Here you can see the laser is removing parts of the book, which then kind of create these wormholes that you called, as you called them, Karen.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll conclude. We need some way of concluding, and I think hopefully I have Sherry Levine's quote to end on. Let me see, and if I don't, I'll just read it to you. But so the artist Sherry Levine in the early 1980s, in an artist statement, stated, "We know that a picture is but a space in which a variety of images, none of them original, blend and clash. Every picture is this space, this contested space where other images are combining already." Last time I told you, I thought that generative AI was a kind of digital collage. I am now.
I think it's a kind of a completely. Generative AI is a digital sausage machine.
It's a sausage machine, all right. So when you get tired of eating sausages and mash, nothing wrong with them. but it can be a little easy sometimes. Sometimes you want to explore sometimes you want to have other experiences. So studio practice, collage, as a form of appropriation and
appropriation as a form of political comment on the visual rhetoric that we have around us.
Yes. Thank you so much, Karen, for helping me out today. I know that you're rushing off to do another thing. We heard the alarm go off before. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you in another couple of weeks with something else. Maybe we'll do drawings, or maybe we'll do, I don't know, I'll have a think about it. I'm so grateful that if you're still listening at this point in the video, and I appreciate your patience, and I'll try and catch up with you around the studio classes in the next couple of weeks. Thanks,
Andy.
everyone. Thanks, Karen. All right, we're done.